everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on episode 5 of Skip and Loafer. And oh my gosh, the last 2 episodes have been really, really good. I have really liked them. I've got a lot of comments that are on Patreon and a lot of comments that are on YouTube that I haven't got to yet. But I couldn't wait. I had to go ahead and watch this episode this morning because I was like, I want to wake up and watch something, and Skip and Loafer sounds like the best thing to watch. So I will get to those comments. I will probably have stuff to talk about next week, hopefully. But yeah, I really appreciate everybody enjoying the story, the comments. Everybody's being super cool about spoilers and not spoiling me, which is amazing. So thank you. But yeah, it's been a really amazing show so far. Mitsumi, my girl. I relate to her so much. I love Mitsumi. Mitsumi and I we were talking about this in some of the comments. I was like, I find myself relating to Mitsumi so much. And especially like myself in high school. Oh, can relate to so many things that she does throughout the show so far. And I wish I had a Sosuke when I was in high school. I wish I'd had one of those. I did have a really close friend in high school, but they would not have dated me for obvious reasons. But yeah, I really like their dynamic so far. I love Kunami. I love Yazuki, Egashira, whose name I finally seem to have managed. I even like her. I think that she's got some issues with jealousy and insecurities, but so do all these kids. All these kids have insecurities, and I like the way the show handles it and talks about it and relates it in such a very easy to understand way. It just works out really, really well. So I'm really excited about this episode and seeing what we get. We're almost to the halfway point, which is very sad because I really enjoy my weekly dose of serotonin that is being brought forth by Skip and Loafer. So what can we do, right? Before we start, though, I do want to give a special shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon. Everybody on YouTube that subscribe and support and comment are really appreciated. And everyone over on Patreon, whether you're donating $1 to be in the polls and on the Discord, whether you're watching everything a week early with $5, or if you're in the philanthropy tier for $10 and you're helping me to do this, and I appreciate it so much. You're getting all that along with breaking ties and getting shout outs in the videos. I really, really appreciate it, so thank you. But a special shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Dana, to Danger Zone, to Destiny Marie, to Eric, to Kiri, to Loisa G, aka Frogman, to Lyndon, to Matthew Palfiniere, to Nameless Monster, to Trails, to Translucent Men, to Sunspots, to Shimoyama, to Murphew, to Nicholas. Thank you all so much. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. I don't know. The nice thing about this series is it's very episodic. It's just very much like every episode is its own thing. So if you miss an episode, you're not out of the loop, but at the same time, there's still a thread going through and things are kind of building. So you kind of need to see all the episodes, but you don't have to see all the episodes, if that makes sense. So I like that. And plus it makes it to where I have no clue what's going to be happening. So we'll just see, right? But we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to start episode 5 of Skip and Loafer, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. This episode went by like it was 5 seconds long. This was so good. Okay. So definitely want to break this down. I'm glad we got Egashira focus. I was wondering at what point were we going to get focus on her in this season, and here we are. So let's talk about this. I want to dive right into this episode because there's a lot to kind of break down and discuss, but Mitsumi getting back to her family, saying, it's getting warm in Tokyo, we're getting midterms, which the school semester and year in Japan is different. Like, they start their school year, don't they start their school year in April or something? Usually in America, we start our school year in August or like the 1st of September. So it is a little bit different. So I'm imagining that midterms are happening right around before summer vacation and all of that, right? So that's interesting. But I like that everybody's like working. And I like the reminder that this is a Japanese prep school. So they're all just like actually studying hard to get into universities like Tokyo U and things like that. But they use the sports festival kind of as a way to like blow off steam and kind of let off after all their hard work. So they have different class matches. So I like they have on the board like tennis and badminton. And then of course they have volleyball, and you kind of pick which sport you want to do. And then we have our class match committee, which is Motobayashi and Koshino. Now, Motobayashi, girl with the little fang, like, intense. I love her already. I love how intense that she is about everything. It's great. And then Mitsumi's like, oh, also, so Yamada. Yamada is the name of the blonde boy. I freaking love Yamada. He is amazing. He is so funny. And he's just so, like, he loves Yuzuki so much. And I'm like, my dude. But I love that he's just so funny in this. And I was surprised. I guess my hope, as I was talking about in the reaction OP, was that I kind of wanted Sosuke to not be good at sports, and that be the twist, that he's the pretty boy, but he's not athletic. No, he is. Because of course he is. And then of course he's good at basketball, good enough at basketball to get the attention of all the girls. And that's kind of the thing too. Even when you're not the best at a sport, if you're good looking, the ladies seem to notice you a little bit more, right? I was getting slam dunk vibes where, oh, what's his face? Not Kaide. Well, it is Kaide. But where he was getting all the attention, and our main boy, he was just like, what's going on? What are you talking about? Why are these girls paying attention to you? That, like, Sosuke was giving me that slam dunk vibe there. Let's get past this OP, though. So, Kunami is hilarious. I freaking love Kunami just being like, I hate being in a team sport. And I love, like, Kunami not playing volleyball in this episode because she doesn't want to play with a team is just like a little subtle character building that I really like. I like that it's basically her being like, look, I don't want to play a team sport. I don't want to be responsible if we lose. If I play a single solo sport and I lose, it's because of me. Like, respect. And I like that Yuzuki and Mitsumi kind of, they don't, chide her for it. They don't get onto her being like, why don't you play a team sport like the rest of us? No, they just let her go because that's just her thing. That's her MO, and that's fine. So I think that's hilarious. And then she's all doom and gloom, and she's like, what's the point of doing this if it's not going to affect her entrance exam? Like, her just grumbling. I love Mitsumi and Yuzuki just being like, she's so, I have a friend from high school that's just like Kunami in that she's so funny in how she complains about things, because it's not really like dead serious, but it's not totally, lighthearted either. It's kind of like right in between, like Kunami's is. And it's freaking hilarious to like watch her just grumble and go off. Hilarious. And I feel like both of them kind of have that same vibe. And they're like, man, they're like, people like her who lead the unhealthiest lifestyle without sports need it the most. I just love that it's kind of the unsaid rule that like she needs this, right? So we cut to Mitsumi outside. I like the little tiny effects that they have in this episode, like showing the paint peeling off of the railing and the rust underneath. That's such like a specific high school feeling, because I remember being in high school and just seeing like the paint, and it's like naturally you want to like pick it off because it's like peeling away. Like, I like that. Also, it could be that the outer is peeling away as we get to know these characters and we get to understand them a little bit more. But yeah, so Mitsumi kind of opens up. I like that we have Mitsumi and Sosuke opening up to one another, and him eating like the milk bread there, like the bread sandwich, and her saying like, I'm really not good at sports, but Mitsumi's thing is, even when she's not good at something, she wants to put her best foot forward and be the best that she can be. And she's like, I feel like I'm going to let everybody down if I suck at this. And Sosuke's like, okay, all right, well, let's solve this problem, shall we? I like that Sosuke's like, well, we can figure out a way to make this work. And so she's like, I'm terrible at sports. She's like, I don't know if you knew this, Sosuke, but I'm terrible. And then he instantly thinks back to where she trips and falls. And he's like, no, that checks out. He's like, you don't say, huh? And then at first, Sosuke's like, well, we could practice, just you and me. And of course, we're all like, oh, yes, Sosuke and Mitsumi one-on-one practice. Sure. But here's the thing. you could wonder whether Sosuke feels like that's overstepping or stepping too far. And is that kind of getting into like one-on-one territory of, do I like you or not? And it's getting a little intimate there. But I don't think that's the case. I think that Sosuke understands that Mitsumi has this presence. And he said that last episode or an episode before where he's like, people kind of gravitate towards you and you instantly like pull people along. Like he's like, you just have that personality. You're like, you literally are the miracle worker. If somebody has a social anxiety or a problem, you will bring them together because you're fearless. And I think that Sosuke is using this opportunity to try to get Egashira, because Egashira so far of the friend group has kind of been the weak link, and it's Egashira's fault. Like she's a self-saboteur, and we get into that this episode. But I think Sosuke, who's extremely observant, notices that Egashira is kind of like the odd man out. And so he's like, I want to fix that. And Sosuke's like, I can't fix that because she likes me. And I don't really care about her that way. So he's like, instead, I'm going to have my miracle worker friend Mitsumi here do her magic and get Egashira on her side and into the circle, which is essentially what happens. So I really like that. I like that we don't get like the stereotypical, practice between just the two of them. Instead, he's like, you could ask one of your friends for help, and then we get Egashira. And Egashira, I do like the way this show describes her as she's blunt. It's not that she's necessarily being mean. She's literally plain Jane. No, except nicer than plain Jane from Drag Race. But she's super blunt, and we'll talk about her whole backstory and everything. But she's blunt. She's not afraid to mince words. And Mitsumi is like, yeah, that's why I asked you to help me because, Yuzuki and Kunimi doesn't know anything about volleyball. And even though Yuzuki played volleyball, she'd probably just be like, oh, you're doing such a great job, Mitsumi. And Mitsumi's like, that's not going to help me get better. I need somebody that can tell me and critique me and I can handle it. So Mitsumi has thicker skin than she lets on, and we get that demonstrated throughout this episode, right? That she is fearless, girl. I love Mitsumi. I also love some of the expressions. I'm gonna take a picture of that. Some of the expressions that Egashira makes are hilarious, where she's like, girl, you are like, this is gonna be a charity case for sure. And at first, it was kind of, at first I was a little bit kind of like, come on, Egashira, whenever she'd like turn on the charm every time Sosuke would enter the room. But the thing about it is, Sosuke can see right through it. Sosuke sees just like, he sees through her veneer there and sees what's underneath, right? And I think that's why he's encouraging her to work with Egashira, because he knows Mitsumi can help, right? Everyone having strengths and weaknesses. And he's like, look, you can tutor me in English later or in classical literature. And Mitsumi's like, I'll tell you anything. And he's like, Egashira, are you bad in any subjects? Like, just the thing that Sosuke says, Sosuke is trying to pull information out of Egashira to get her in part of the conversation, which is really nice. I do genuinely think that Sosuke is a nice person, whether he believes it or not. I think that he's a nice person because he is trying to include Egashira in the conversation and be like, hey, what about you? What subjects are you not as good at? And she's like, oh, math, which can relate, girl. And then she's like, I could get used to this. And just like, the thing that kind of does bug me sometimes with Egashira, and she can't help it, is that she tries to kind of steal Sosuke's time. And Mitsumi's kind of back there like, hey, what you guys doing? And Egashira tries to like steal his attention. That part, as somebody that wants Mitsumi and Sosuke together, I'm like, stop that. But then she can't help it. That's just how she feels, right? And Mitsumi, I don't think cares. Mitsumi is fine either way. That's what's so great about Mitsumi, is that she could care less about that, right? I do love the dandelion opening up, and then there's left with the two little pods at the end. That symbolism is great there. I try to see if there's a 4-leaf clover amidst all the clover here, but I don't think there is, which is sad days. But showing the two of them practice and Sosuke watching to make sure that it's all going to work out fine, and the three of them working together, right? And there actually is 3 dandelion pods, but here's the thing. There's 2 dandelion pods on one stalk and one sticking out of the other. Is the one sticking out of the other supposed to be Egashira and Mitsumi and Sosuke are the other 2? Or is it Mitsumi and Egashira on one and Sosuke on the other? Or is it Egashira and Sosuke and Mitsumi? I'm like, they don't let you know for sure, so it's so frustrating, right? You just have to sit there and guess about it. And so then Mitsumi makes them the little bags of food. She's like, my aunt helped me out instead. My aunt insisted that you take these. And it's just junk food, right? Like the Pocky sticks and the red bean bread and all that. And Egashira's like, oh, it's all just sweet junk. And she takes out the one thing. She's like, oh, I'm just good with this. We could give the rest with the class, right? And she's like, oh, you sure you don't want the bread? She's like, all your lunches look like this. And they're all like the rice and the healthy foods and everything. And then I like that Sosuke says, oh, it's a girly girl's lunch. And she says, I'm not a big eater. She's like, I'm controlling myself because I gain weight easily. And then, so Egashira back there, now it's switched, right? And the difference is whenever it was Sosuke and Egashira was like, oh my gosh. And Mitsumi was back there like, what a great bunch of friends that I have. And here when it's reversed and it's Sosuke and Mitsumi talking, then Egashira's here having this like soliloquy with herself, right? And Mitsumi's like, well, everyone has big appetites where I'm from. I'm from the country. Yeah, country, it's like buffets and giant family-style meals, all this stuff. And Egashira's saying he's still an enigma, but he seems like a really nice person. Lucky you, Iwakura-san. I feel like after this episode, Egashira knows. She has this hypothesis that Sosuke likes Mitsumi, but he's not letting it on because, I mean, a number of reasons. One, he may not want to ruin that friendship with Mitsumi because Mitsumi, I'm glad that Mitsumi kind of acknowledges that, you know, maybe there's some feelings or something there, but Mitsumi's not acting on it. And maybe Sosuke's afraid that if he acts on it and she's not feeling mutual, that it's not going to work out. Or it could ruin their friendship if it's not mutual. But then two, I think Sosuke also kind of wants to protect her from these crazy fangirls that are in this school that might target Mitsumi being like, why her? Kind of like Egashira did or has throughout this series so far. So it makes sense why he's not bringing it to attention. And plus they're just freshmen, so they have all of high school left to go. But yeah, I think Egashira believes that he likes her. He accepts you for who you are. Well, and the thing about it is, I feel for Egashira in a lot of ways, but she is a self-saboteur in a way because it's, you know, I think that Sosuke would accept Egashira for who she was if she was being herself. And he's kind of encouraged her to be herself, like where he's like, hey, maybe you could loosen up, you know, you seem like you're on edge. Or, you know, getting her around Mitsumi, I feel like he does accept her for who she is. She just doesn't realize it, or she doesn't think that anybody could accept her for who she is. And it's like, girl, no. So we get into a little backstory because Mitsumi is just herself, and she just assumes that assumes that that's the way it has to be, right? Which is kind of her like innocent charm. So I do feel for Egashira in this part here where she talks about denying herself her favorite foods. And this related to me on two fronts. One, because I had a friend in high school, like one of my best friends in high school, who he was kind of like, he was heavier set growing up, and he was always afraid that he hated himself being heavier set, which there's nothing wrong with that. Like the one thing about this is I feel like I don't think the show is body shaming anybody, but I don't think there's anything wrong with Egashira, like in how she looked. I think when she was in middle school and stuff, I think she looked perfectly fine. So my friend in high school, they didn't like how they looked. And I was like, you're fine. But he denied himself, kind of like what Egashira is doing, denying himself all this food and taking super high care maintenance of his face and like his like skin routine and all this. And like Egashira says, worked really hard to get to the state they're in. And that's fine, but there was nothing wrong with him to begin with. And my friends and I always told him that. We're like, there's nothing wrong with you. And he was like, no, I just have to do this. And so I get it. I get Egashira and where they're coming from, but you shouldn't deny yourself, you know, unless it's like a health thing. You shouldn't deny yourself like this. Fighting your way into a glamorous club. And surrounding yourself with these people. And I do think Egashira is wrong where she's like, you haven't had to put in all that effort. I do think Egashira, you know, you should never judge someone and say, oh, you haven't had to work as hard as I have, because you just don't know. Like Egashira has no clue Mitsumi's background or no clue what Mitsumi's gone through growing up in life. So even if she hasn't put in as much work as Egashira, you shouldn't judge somebody or say or put out there that you're better than someone because you've put in more effort to your appearance. I mean, that's just, Mitsumi doesn't care. That's the thing. Mitsumi doesn't care like you do. So it's hard to gauge and judge that. But I also feel for Egashira a little bit because I have always kind of had like a body dysmorphia thing. And growing up, and when I was in college, I did go through a period where I did have anorexia for a while, where I was trying to impress someone and I just stopped eating. I was just like, oh, I don't need to do that. And it was really hard. And I got down where because I kind of, unlike Egashira, I wasn't like, I can't say that I was ever like a heavier set person, but I did gain weight in high school. And after high school, I did kind of like Egashira. I went to the gym a lot. I worked out a lot. I did a lot to try to like maintain that like physique that I wanted for myself. And then I liked somebody and I thought that I wasn't good enough. And so I like literally starved myself to try to impress them. And guess what? It didn't work. No, it didn't work at all. It didn't change their opinion of me. It didn't like impress them or attract them anymore. It just didn't work out. And at that point I realized, oh man, this was for a bad reason and I shouldn't have done that. And it took a little while after that to like gain back like who I was at that point, but I didn't ever go back to doing that again after that. I was like, oh no, I'm like, why am I depriving myself and literally making myself unhealthy for someone else? And so that really sucks, right? So you get like emotional talking about it, but yeah, so I understand Egashira where she's trying to like look a certain way. And that's what's so heartbreaking about it. Like I wanted to cry in this episode for Egashira because I was like, girl, at this point, I think Sosuke liking Mitsumi, because at the very beginning, Mitsumi's like, oh, she's a country bumpkin and she's so plain. Why would he like her? But that's the point. She gets to at the end of the episode is that sometimes it's not how you look or how popular you are or like what talents you have. It's the fact that your personality, your being and who you are for someone else is filling in a gap that they don't have. And she kind of realizes, she's like, maybe Sosuke sees in Mitsumi something that he is missing. And that's like, they're two pieces fulfilling each other. And it's not how she looks or how talented she is or how popular or smart she is. It's just who she is that he's attracted to. And she kind of comes to that conclusion. But I wanted to cry for Egashira in this episode because I'm like, girl, it's not going to matter how you look. And it's not going to matter how you control like what you eat or what you do. In the end, if he doesn't like you, he's not going to like you. And that's a hard lesson to learn. And I've been there and it's hard. When you like change yourself to try, and that's the problem, you change yourself to try to appeal to someone else, but then what you are wasn't what they wanted to begin with. And that's a hard lesson to learn. And my heart breaks for her a little bit that I'm like, ugh. But then I'm also like, Egashira, you need to realize that so you can start being yourself, and just not have to worry what other people think. So it's hard, right? But that whole thing, I hate that for her. And so then, yeah, Sosuke's like, I'm going to leave you guys together. I like that Sosuke stood around just long enough to make sure that Egashira wasn't going to kill her. And then he's like, okay, bye. I'm going to back off now. And Mitsumi's like, yeah, let's do this. And she's like, So then we have the third year boys that are kind of being rude and playing basketball. And Egashira doesn't want to start, Egashira is blunt, but she also doesn't want to start conflict because she's been bullied in the past and doesn't want to experience that again, which fair, who would? But Mitsumi is just like, I'm not going to sit there and let you, hurt my friend and stay here where you're not supposed to be. She's like, go get back in your lane. And I like that she stands up to the third year and he kind of ignores her. But then the one third year that's there, he looks like, the one guy, he looks like God in Kroku's basketball. It's Kisei's superior, Kisei's captain. Oh my God. It's not Hitsugaya. Hanakawa, maybe. Oh my God. My mind has gone blank, but he's on Kisei's team in Kroku's basketball and he's like his senpai. And this guy has the exact same like mentality of being like, shame on you. Those are first year girls. Loved it. And I liked that Egashira, first of all, Egashira having the burn book, she sees the back of their shoes, Shirai and Shibamoto. The list of Mika, the choir singing in the background, that was amazing. And then her, like, her burn book that she's like, I'm going to write you guys down and you will pay. I wonder if Mitsumi's in that book and she's, like, marked her out. But I feel bad because then Egashira's like, wow, I focused only on these people I have a grudge with that have done bad to me. And Mitsumi focuses on the one that did good. She's like, she remembered the name of the man that helped them. I'm like, because that's just, Mitsumi's just freaking pure. Mitsumi's like what we should all strive to be as a person. I do like that Egashira tells her to be like, hey, be careful though. Don't just jump into these situations. You could get hurt. Because Mitsumi is kind of like, you know, country bumpkin where she just jumps in and Egashira's like, you might get into a situation you're not prepared for. And then she kind of envies, you know, Mitsumi for doing the right thing and being grateful for the man that helped rather than the people that hurt. So then I like that Yuzuki and Kunimi, they stopped making out long enough to come here and help them practice for volleyball. And it's super cute. And I was expecting Egashira to like be really mad that Yuzuki was there, but she's just kind of like, fine. Yuzuki's coming. And that's when she's like, why did you ask me to help Mitsumi? Why didn't you ask Yuzuki? And Mitsumi's like, because you were going to be the better teacher. She's like, you're going to be the better teacher in all this. And I like that Mitsumi admits, she's like, yeah, you come off as a bit harsh, but that's kind of why I wanted you to teach me. And then I hate seeing Egashira deny herself. I hate seeing her deny herself having any sweets and then doing like the skin routine and everything to like make herself look prettier and then working really hard. Like, I like Egashira's character a lot more after this episode. I just wish that she wouldn't deny herself, like, things that she enjoys just for the sake of trying to impress people that don't matter, you know? And then she's like, you got a sharp tongue yourself. And I'm like, Mitsumi doesn't mince words either. She just does it in, like, a killing with kindness way. And then Sosuke shows up and he's like, wow, you're being a drill sergeant, huh? I want in. Like, is this a secret kink that you have, Sosuke? Is this a secret kink that you're into? You like being bossed around? Maybe. And so him and being the basketball club. And yeah, her turning back around to see him. And he's like, you can do it. Again, Sosuke is a nice person that is trying to just encourage her to make friends and be a good person. I also love that Kunimi is trying to walk away. I just now noticed that Kunimi is trying to walk away and Yuzuki like grabs her by the arm like, nope, you're staying with us. That's so funny. That's great. And then I like that Egashira is like, fine, Kunimi, you're going to take notes. We're going to practice this. So then we're getting ready for the game. I'm glad that these two episodes connected. We actually got to see the volleyball game. I was going to be really sad if we didn't get to see it. But, the braid that Yuzuki makes for Kunimi is so cute. I love Yuzuki's braid, like pigtails that she has, which are kind of, you know, imitating Kunimi a little bit. Am I right? It's so pretty. And I like that Mitsumi had the little top knot and then Egashira is like, God, no. I'm glad Egashira has grown as a character because I think the Egashira of episode 1 would have been like, oh, look how awful her hair looks. Like, Sosuke's never going to like that. Like, let's let her leave it. And here, Egashira's like, no, you need to stop. We're going to redo this. But Mitsumi's kind of oblivious when it comes to, like, I think things like making herself look pretty and stuff that Egashira's, like, studied. I think Mitsumi has no clue. So she gives her, like, the little clips and everything. That's so sweet. I love it. So then we have them playing volleyball. And, let's see here. We got here. I don't know who the setter is. They don't really show us, like, who plays what. I feel like maybe Mitsumi's an opposite. I don't know. Not a libero, that's for sure. Yuzuki seems like a middle blocker. But they end up winning their first match, which is great. I love it. I like the girl. We see the girl with the top knot that we saw her in other episodes. And then there's this girl that has the same hair as Egashira. It's just floofier. She looks like a character from Heaven Official's Blessing with big floofy hair. Like, she just has this big fluffy hair, but she kind of looks like Egashira. I thought she was her at first. And then we have poor Kunimi. She's not doing great at table tennis, but bless her. And so then they're all having lunch together. I like the one girl at the top, not just she's passed out. She's just done. And then she has all these pickled vegetables and she's going to go give them to the basketball team. And they're like, I don't know about that, if that's going to work. She's like, She's like, I don't know if you'll be able to. And it's because Sosuke has the massive fan base. So I wanted to see his text messages. So it's like, class match boys, cool. And then it says, our class got first place in our year. The boys usually suck, but they were cool out there. Good job, guys. We didn't win our class match, but it was cool. The boys were cool out there. Love you, class 1. And we see all these, like, the normally stupid-ass boys were so cool. And then we see, yeah. And I like that Yamada's looking, he's like, check this out, Mukai. He's like, apparently guys are 30% cooler when they play sports. I like that Mukai's like, you just keep doing what you do, man. Mukai is freaking cool. I love him. He's just like, all right. He is there as support. And then I love Yamada. He's like just so cute. He's so excited. And then, yeah, Sosuke's effortlessly cool in playing basketball. Him and Mukai. And then, so we get this moment where Mitsumi kind of has this self-awareness that, oh, even the upperclassmen girls, like all these girls are here to see Sosuke. And the funny part is Sosuke passes it to Yamada, who shoots and makes the basket. And you would think, oh, the girls are going to love Yamada for that. No, they're like, what a great guy Sosuke was for passing the ball to Yamada, his teammates. At least Yuzuki gives him praise and that's all he wanted. And so he just like flies away with that. Like good for Yuzuki for doing that. That's amazing. And so that's when Mitsumi's like, oh, okay. Like, even, like, Kunimi and Yuzuki are like, well, we like each other, so this is not affecting us at all. And Mitsumi's like, he's really popular. And then she kind of has this internal monologue. She's like, I kind of knew he was popular, but it really shows at something like this. And he's sitting there sparkling, right? And then that's when she starts to get a little bit hesitant about giving them the lunch. Because she's like, oh. And Egashira kind of notices. And here's the thing. She's like, aren't you going to give it to him? She's like, no, I can't really go up there, can I? And at first I was like, come on, Egashira, encourage her to go give it to them. But that's not Egashira's character. And they say that the other girls would get mad if she had done that. So it was probably better if she didn't like. I think that, yeah, and she's like, even Mitsumi can read this room. Which, you know, I feel like maybe in hindsight, it's better that she didn't go up there and give the lunchbox at first because those girls were like been on her heels about it. And Mitsumi doesn't need that kind of drama. No. But Mukai, I feel like notices that she's over there. Mukai is very observant as like Sosuke is. And Mukai notices Mitsumi over there and he's like, okay, what's going on? And that's when Yuzuki like says to Yamada, she's like, that was a great shot. It was really cool. And then, yeah, Yamada's like, yes, this worked. And Mukai's like, happy for you, man. But then Mitsumi comes up to him, to Mukai. And she's like, I only came to watch. And Sosuke notices her. Like, Yamada's still sitting there like, you know, an angel because Yuzuki's noticed him for 5 seconds. And then Mukai is pointing at Sosuke saying, hey. And Mitsumi's like, oh, no, it's fine. So Sosuke sees her. He notices her. Out of all those girls that are in his periphery, he sees her and smiles like, okay, all right. And she's like, I couldn't give it to him back there. Yeah, the girls would have been all up and down our case about it. And that's when Kanachika shows up. And I like Kanachika. I like that he says he makes the rice balls instead of helps them, you know, with the soccer thing, like you do. But he's like, hey... He's like, you should give Sosuke that bag of pickled vegetables because he's probably lonely. And he's like, I've never been popular, so I'm just guessing. I'm like, Kanachika, you've never been popular? You should be. Kanachika's handsome, and he can cook, so he should be popular. But he's like, I'm just guessing. He may act the same as he always does, but people tend to keep their distance from him. And that's kind of the thing, is that the first day Sosuke met her, she did not keep her distance at all from him. She didn't even treat him any different than anybody else. She was actually being more herself and like being, you know, a frazzled hot mess. And I think that's what attracted Sosuke to her. was that she's herself and she didn't put on airs around him. Because that's kind of what Egashira does a lot. She puts on airs around him and like acts a certain way. And Sosuke's like, but that's not the real you. And Mitsumi always acts like herself around him. So that's what he likes about her. And I don't want that to change. And I don't think that would change, because I think even if she likes him, she's not going to act differently around him, or at least I hope not. So that's why when I say I don't care if they stay platonic friends, because sometimes when people act differently and there's all this miscommunication trope, I hate the miscommunication trope. So I'm like, no. That's why I'm glad at the very end she actually goes and gives them the vegetables and sees him. I'm like, good. Yes. Don't just stay away from him. No. And then Mitsumi believes that she's like, Shima is lonely? She's like, I was the one that was lonely. And I never thought of it that way, because he was always so forward and instantly became my friend. She's like, we've become really good friends, but part of me was afraid that he didn't see me the same way. And the funny thing is, she's not thinking of him viewing her romantically. She was afraid he didn't see them as friends. And I'm like, girl. And so she's like, so I kept my distance because I was afraid. I assumed I was the lonely one. But he asked me to be a friend, so clearly that means that he wanted a friend too. And she's kind of like, that kind of inspires her to go to him later on. But then we have this one, the rematch, where they lose, and they're sitting there. It's like a Haikyuu finale match. Oh my god, like a season finale. I like that Yuzuki has hurt her arm, and like we get the receive on Mitsumi. This one woman that kind of looks like now, Mitsumi's cousin. She also looks like she's Oikawa's cousin. She's got the number 1 jersey. She's the captain. I'm like, they are clearly the best team in the high school. And I'm like, my headcanon is that she's Oikawa's cousin that plays volleyball as well. Just saying. Or Oikawa's sister that plays volleyball. She could be Oikawa's sister. We don't ever see a picture of his sister. I think she could be that. It's his sister that goes to that high school. She acts a lot like Oikawa, so that's really funny. And then I like that Mitsumi, she puts in all that practice and gets the receive, has a very shoujo moment from Haikyuu. It's great. And then she thinks about Sosuke, and she's like, he reached out to me and became my friend even when I was having like the worst first day ever. And she's like, I can't let all that hard work down. And then she decides that she's like, I'm going to run there and give them the food and say, be damned to the other girls. And they're like, wow, like, Mitsumi is bold. And then Egashira says, she's so tough. I'm envious she could make that choice. Because I don't think Egashira would. I think Egashira would never have gave them the lunch, because she would have been so doubtful that he would have noticed or cared that she would have felt discouraged. But Mitsumi's like, nah, I'm going to go there. I'm going to give him the snacks. And then the other girls are like, oh, so do you like Sosuke too? And she's like, I think he's hot, but so do you guys. And she shakes it off, being like, besides, we've only been going to school together for 2 months. So does Egashira, I mean, that makes sense. If Egashira just thinks he's hot, she's just been trying to get on his good side to get to know him, that makes sense. But I think she realizes that he likes Mitsumi. And she's like, they're not wrong, but when you fall in love, sometimes it's because you find something in them that you don't have. And I think that's why she liked Sosuke, was because he's so confident and so sure of himself, seemingly, that she is not. She saw that in him and thought that that would, complete her. But then you have Mitsumi that's like, give him hell! And she's like blushing and screaming. And Sosuke's like, oh. And he's like, okay, fine. And then, of course, he does, right? Maybe, just maybe, whatever it is Shima-kun wishes he had. And he looks over to her and waves. She might just have it. Yeah. Egashira's like, uh-huh. And then seeing them and them just, like, clapping their hands. Uh-huh. Yep, that's the feeling I get. Yeah. Girl, I don't think you're wrong. I think you figured it out. And I think Mukai is thinking the same thing, right? And he's like, what's this? And she's like, it's pickled veggies. And that's where that leaves off. Cute. Cute. Absolutely adorable. So this was a really good episode. I'm glad we got Egashira content. I'm glad we know more about Egashira now, about her character. That's really good. I'm so torn because I want the show to pursue Sosuke and Mitsumi realizing that they like each other more than just friends. But in the same vein, I don't want all of the trials and tribulations that come with that in a rom-com. So if they just stay friends, fine. But if they become more than that, fine. I guess we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? But this is a really good episode, and I do like Egashira's character more. She still frustrates me sometimes. I'm like, girl, you need to get out of your head a little bit more. But I understand her character more, which is a good thing. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, what you guys thought of this episode. But I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'm going to go answer some comments and be back next week for episode 6, the halfway point of this season of Skip and Loafer. Bye!